All right, today we're going to be reviewing for our quiz on Monday, 7.1 to 7.5 review notes. The first thing that I want us to do today is identify the like terms, constants, and coefficients of the expression. So what do you see that's a like up here on my problem?
4x and negative 2x.
4x and negative 2x. What else is like terms?
Positive 10 and negative 4.
Good job. Okay, so we're going to write down our like terms. The first thing that you see that's alike is what?
4x and negative 2x.
Okay, and you just stick it in parentheses like that. And what else is up there?
Positive 10 and negative 4.
Thank you for telling me negative numbers because every number has a sign and that sign is directly in front of that number. Good job. So help me out with what are my constants?
4 and negative 2.
Good job. Because those,
Have variables.
hold on, that's what a coefficient is. What's a constant?
Only
Constant
the
is the
number
number
part.
before the variable.
No,
No,
it's
it's
not
the
the
one
number
that
before the
stands
variable.
Sign.
It's the number that stands alone. A constant is a number that stands alone. So it's the 10 and the
Four.
Negative 4.
negative 4. Keep it with the negative. Coefficients, that's the number part before the variable term. So what are my coefficients?
4 and 2x. Negative.
4 and negative 2. Now listen, you don't want to tell me negative 2x because x is the variable. So you don't want that variable there. It's just the number part. The coefficient is the number part of a variable term. Okay, so there will be questions exactly like that on your quiz on Monday. Number 2, simplify the expression. So the instructions have asked us to simplify. Does that mean to solve the equation?
No.
No, it's asking me to make it more simple, to simplify it. So first, let's figure out like terms. Do you see any like terms on problem A?
7w and negative 2w.
Okay, so let's combine those like terms. What is 7w minus 2w?
5w.
5w. Is there anything to combine with the negative 6? No, so we just bring it down, and you have now simplified our problem. Is there anything that I can combine on problem B that's like terms?
8 and 5.
Negative 3.
Always do the variable part first. So what's the variable for?
Negative 3z and positive 5z.
Good job. Anything else?
No.
Okay, what else is like terms?
8 and 5.
8 and 5.
8 and 5. Once again, we always want to do the variable term first. What is negative 3z plus 5z?
2z.
2z. Same sign, add and keep, different sign, subtract and take. Because the 3 right here is a negative, and because the 5 right here is a positive, those are different signs. So I subtract them. 5z minus 3z is not 2z. And then you have to make sure you keep the sign of the larger number, which is a positive. Okay, now the last part I need to do, what's 8 plus 5?
13.
13. So that is your answer, and you have simplified your expression. Number 3, write the verbal phrase as a variable expression, let y represent the variable. So the first one, problem A, says a number increased by 5. If you remember, I gave you that worksheet. It's a blue paper, and it says words into math. So there's a lot of different key phrases that have to do with adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing. There's also a few key phrases that we remember are parenthesis words. What were the parenthesis words? The sum of, the difference of. Okay, so you're always going to be looking for those to see if you need to put parentheses around them. Next up, turnaround words. Those are words that have the word than in it. What are those 3 words? Less than, more than, fewer than. So let's look at problem A. A number increased by 5. Do you see any parenthesis words or turnaround words? No. So it's just going to be normal reading from left to right. Remember, instead of saying a number, what letter am I going to put in there? A y, okay? Because the instructions said let y represent the variable. So a number is y increased by, what is that?
Addition.
A plus sign, and then the number
5.
5. That's all you have to do. Because all the instructions asked us to do was to write it as a variable expression. Let's look at the next one. The sum of 2 and a number is 6. Do you see any parenthesis words or turnaround words? The sum of. So let's just go ahead and underline that. That means that I need to put parentheses. And what sign goes with the sum of?
Plus.
plus. Okay, addend, sum. That means you have to add it in there, okay? So who can help me out? What am I going to write in there?
2 plus y.
Plus y equals 6.
Equals 6, because is an equal sign and then the number 6. Box it in. The quotient of a number and 5 is 10. Do you see any special words, parenthesis words, or turnaround words? No, so we're just going to go from left to right. How do I write the quotient of?
Put a fraction bar.
Okay, we're going to use a fraction bar for the division sign. And what do I do now?
Y over 5.
Y over 5. Because as you're working from left to right, you always put the number on top first, that's on the left side, and then keep going. Okay, then what do I do next?
Equals 10.
Equals 10. Number 4. Beforehand, we've just been simplifying the expression, but now we're going to actually solve the equation, and then we're going to check our solution. Problem A says negative 12 equals m minus 10. First off, you want to identify the variable. Okay, m is the letter. I want m all by itself. What is on the side with the equal sign on that side that's not allowing m to be alone? Negative 10. What's the opposite of minus 10? Okay, plus 10. So if I add plus 10 to this side, what do I have to do? Add 10 to the other side. What happens to negative 10 plus 10? It cancels out and it equals 0. Now all I'm left with is m. For this next part, you are allowed to use your calculators. You can also use the same sign, add and keep, different signs, subtract and take. What is negative 12 plus 10? Negative 2. That's your answer. So you want to box that in for me. It asks us to solve the equation, then it says check your solution. So go ahead and check it for me. You want to rewrite the original equation. So I'm going to bring this down right here. Good job. Okay, all you want to do is instead of writing this m, you're going to put what m equals. All right, so then we've got negative 12. And guys, what is negative 2 minus 10? Negative 12. Same sign, add the numbers, keep the sign. And negative 12 does equal negative 12, so it checked out. The next one's a little bit trickier. It says 2/3 n equals 6. Remind me, if I have a coefficient or a number directly next to a variable or a letter, what sign is in between them? Multiplication, okay? So the opposite of multiply is to divide, but it's trickier when you have a fraction. Does anyone remember what I'm supposed to do if I have a fraction?
Divided by the same. Divided by 2/3.
Okay, I'm going to divide by 2/3, which is the KFC method. You keep the first one, you flip the second one, you change the sign. So we're actually, instead of dividing, we're going to multiply by what?
2/3.
Not by 2/3.
3 over 2.
I'm going to multiply by the reciprocal. Remember, if you have a fraction involved, you have to multiply by the reciprocal. What happens to 3/2 times 2/3?
8.
It becomes a whole.
It becomes a 1 whole. Okay, so now I have 1n, but I don't really need to keep that 1 there, so I'm just going to keep an imaginary n. Now you can put this in your calculator, 6 times 3/2.
9.
Okay, if you don't want to put it in your calculator, you can figure out, cross this out, goes to a 1, goes to a 3, and 3 times 3 is 9. But you are also allowed to use your calculator. So n equals 9. Kayla, check it for me, please.
2/3 times 9 equals 6. And 6 equals 6.
Okay, very good job. Once again, you can use your calculators, or you can go like this and figure out that 2 times 3 does equal 6. Okay, there's 2 more examples like this, C and D. What understood number is in front of negative G? Negative 1G. So, what is not allowing G to be by itself? Negative 1. What should I do to that negative 1?
Oh, divide by.
Divide by the same exact number. Divide it by negative 1. Ashley, what happens to negative 1 over negative 1?
Cancel it out.
Cancels it out. It just becomes a 1. So I'm left with just plain old G over there. And what is 15 divided by negative 1? Negative 15. Good job. If you have a negative number multiplied by a negative answer, your answer will always be a positive. So negative 1 times negative 15 is 15, and 15 does equal 15. I want you guys to do the next one on your own. What is not allowing Z to be by itself?
13.
What about the 13?
You have to divide it by.
Divide.
Okay, it says right now times 13. The opposite of times 13 is divide by 13. So I've got to do it to both sides because you have to be fair. What you do to one side, you must do to the other. This cancels out. Z equals,
Negative 3.
where'd you get negative 3?
3.
Just plain old 3. There's no negatives there. Plug it in for me, Tati.
Oh. 13. Parentheses 3
Okay,
equals 39.
and what is 13 times 3?
39 equals 39.
Excellent, and it did check out. If for some reason you get different answers, it means something went wrong, so you want to just double check your work. Okay, the last example that I have for you today are these last 2 things. Solve these 2-step equations. So there are 2 things that are keeping the variable from being able to be by itself. If you remember in our notes from yesterday, I said never do something with the number that is attached to the variable first. You always want to add or subtract and then multiply or divide. So what should I get rid of that's on the side of the U first?
Negative 6.
Okay, what's the opposite of positive 6? Minus 6. If I do minus 6 to the left side, got to do it to the right side. Jakari, what happens to 6 minus 6? It cancels out because that equals 0. And what am I left with on the left side? What am I left with on the left side? This is the left side. 7u equals, what is 27 minus 6? 21 is correct. Okay, divide by 7 because the opposite of multiply by 7 is divide by 7. What happens to the 7 over 7? It cancels out, turns into a 1, and I'm left with 1u. What is 21 divided by 7? 3. U equals 3. Now checking is going to be the same exact way. You still take that original problem right there, and we're going to plug in a 3 instead of a U.
7.
Okay, 27 does equal 27. All right, so let's look at this last problem over here. 5h minus 2h plus 5 equals 20. Is there anything that can be combined in like terms there?
5h.
Okay, what is 5h minus 2h?
7h.
What is it?
7h.
3h. You got to subtract it, okay? 3h plus 5 equals 20. So I've got to get rid of plus 5. What do I have to do? Minus 5 to both sides. This cancels out. I'm left with 3h on this side equals 15. I've got to get rid of that multiply by 3, so I'm going to divide by 3 on both sides, and I figure out that h equals 5. So now all you're gonna do, you have a little bit longer of a problem up there, but you're still gonna check it the same way. Plug in that H. You can plug it into your calculator, or you can work it out by hand. 25 minus 10 plus 5, which is in fact 20. So 20 equals 20. Okay, so I want you to make sure that you study for 7.1 to 7.5 for your quiz on Monday. Bring a book to read whenever you're finished with your quiz, and hopefully that helped you feel a little bit better about your quiz on Monday.